What if the single biggest thing standing between you and the life you actually want is not your circumstances, not your past, not the people around you, but an old version of yourself that you have been too afraid to let die? I need to tell you something that took me a long time to admit to myself. For years, I was holding on to a version of myself that was not serving me, a version that was scared, a version that played small, a version that said yes when it meant no, that stayed quiet when it should have spoken, that chose comfort over growth every single time the two were in conflict. And the worst part was not that this version of me existed. The worst part was that I was protecting it, defending it, making excuses for it, calling it being realistic when it was actually being afraid. I was not living, I was maintaining. And there is a difference so enormous between those two things that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. I want to talk to you today about something that nobody in your life is probably going to say to you directly. Not your parents, not your friends, not the people around you who love you and want the best for you, but also, honestly, need you to stay recognizable to them. Nobody is going to look you in the eye and say what needs to be said. So I am going to say it. You need to kill the old you. Not hurt it, not negotiate with it, not slowly ease it toward retirement while keeping it around for comfort. Kill it, completely, intentionally, and without apology. I was 21 years old when I first understood that the version of me I had been carrying around was not actually me. It was a collection of other people's expectations that I had absorbed so completely I had mistaken them for my own identity. It was the sum of every time someone told me what I should be, and I believed them over my own instincts. It was layers and layers of playing it safe, fitting in, not rocking the boat, not wanting too much, not asking for too much, not being too much. I had spent 21 years becoming someone that the world around me was comfortable with, and the person I had become was so far from the person I actually was underneath all of that, that sometimes I would catch a glimpse of my own reflection and feel like I was looking at a stranger. That is a specific kind of pain that I do not think gets talked about enough. The pain of being estranged from yourself, of looking at your own life and feeling like it belongs to someone else, of going through your days performing a version of yourself that you built for other people and feeling this quiet, constant, hollow feeling because the performance is convincing, but it is still a performance, and somewhere underneath it, the real you is suffocating. At 21, I decided I was done performing, and that decision was the most terrifying thing I had ever done. Because here's what nobody tells you about killing the old version of yourself. It is not just an internal process, it has consequences in the real world. When you change, genuinely change, not surface level change, but deep structural change in who you are and how you show up, the people around you will not all celebrate it. Some of them built their relationship with you around the old version. Some of them were comfortable with who you were because who you were was predictable and manageable and did not challenge them. When you start changing that, they will push back. Some of them will call it a phase. Some will say you are being selfish. Some will say you have changed, like it is an accusation, rather than the exact thing you were going for. I lost relationships when I started becoming who I actually was. Real relationships, people I cared about, and that hurt in a way I was not fully prepared for, even though I had made the decision consciously. Because you can understand intellectually that growth costs something, and still feel the weight of that cost when it is actually being collected. But here's what I gained. I gained myself. And I do not mean that in a vague motivational poster kind of way. I mean I gained actual access to my own mind, my own opinions, my own instincts, my own taste, my own voice, my own way of moving through the world. Things I had suppressed so completely that I had almost forgotten they existed. I started waking up in the morning feeling like the day belonged to me, rather than to the performance I had to maintain. I started making decisions from a place of genuine desire, rather than fear of judgment. I started feeling for the first time in years like my life was actually mine. That feeling, the feeling of inhabiting your own life fully and without apology, is worth everything it costs to get there. Everything. I want to speak specifically to the person watching this who is between 18 and 25 years old, because this is the window, This is the time. And I say that not to put pressure on you, but to tell you the truth that I wish someone had told me. The version of you that you are right now, the one shaped by your childhood, by your family's expectations, by your school environment, by the social dynamics of growing up, by every experience that told you who you were supposed to be, that version is not permanent. It is not the final draft. It is a first draft written largely by other people, using your life as the paper. You have the pen now. You can rewrite it. But rewriting requires something that most people are not willing to do. It requires you to look honestly at the old version, the scared version, the people-pleasing version, the plays it safe version, the has not yet decided what it actually believes version, and say, this is not who I am. This is who I became because of my circumstances, and I am no longer my circumstances. I am my choices, and I am choosing something different. Killing the old you does not mean destroying everything you were. It does not mean rejecting your entire history, or pretending your past did not happen, or burning down the relationships that matter to you. It means something much more specific. It means identifying the patterns that are keeping you small and deciding they end with you. It means noticing the fears that have been making your decisions for you and taking the wheel back. It means stopping the automatic behaviors that your old self developed as coping mechanisms and asking whether those mechanisms are still serving you or whether they are just habits that never got reviewed. I had a habit of making myself smaller in rooms where I felt insecure, of speaking less and agreeing more, and positioning myself as someone who did not need much so that nobody would be burdened by me. I developed this when I was younger for reasons that made complete sense at the time. It was a way of staying safe, of not taking up too much space in environments where taking up space felt risky. But I was 21, and the environments had changed, and the risk was no longer real, and the habit was still running, and it was costing me. It was costing me opportunities I did not take, opinions I did not share, versions of myself I did not show, connections that stayed shallow because I never let anyone see below the surface. Killing the old me meant killing that habit, and killing that habit felt like stepping off a cliff the first time. Terrifying, completely uncertain, no guarantee of anything, just the decision to stop doing what had always felt safe and see what happened when I showed up differently. What happened was better than I expected. Not immediately, not perfectly, but genuinely better. You are not too young to do this. You are not too early in your story. You are not at a place where you need to wait until you have more life experience, or more confidence, or more certainty about who you want to become. The waiting is the trap. The waiting is the old you convincing you that change can happen later when it is less scary and less costly and less uncertain. It will always be scary. It will always cost something. It will never be certain. Do it now anyway. Kill the old you, not with anger or self-hatred or the idea that the person you were was worthless, but with the clear-eyed recognition that you have outgrown them, that you are ready for something more honest and more alive and more genuinely you than anything you have been so far. The person you are becoming is waiting, but they cannot arrive until the person you have been gets out of the way. The performance that becomes a prison. Most people between 18 and 25 have built a version of themselves designed primarily to meet other people's expectations and survive their environment. And without a conscious decision to dismantle that performance, it quietly becomes the identity they carry for the rest of their lives, mistaking a survival strategy for a personality. The real cost of staying the same. Choosing not to change the old version of yourself is not a neutral decision, but an active choice to keep paying the price of smallness, inauthenticity, and quiet dissatisfaction every single day, a price that compounds over time and becomes increasingly expensive as years pass. Growth will cost you relationships. Genuine transformation of identity always disrupts the social ecosystem around you, because some people in your life are invested in the old version of you, and when that version changes, they will resist it. And understanding this cost in advance is what allows you to pay it without being destroyed by it. The difference between destroying and evolving. Killing the old you is not an act of self-hatred or rejection of your history, but a deliberate and compassionate decision to stop letting patterns that were formed in circumstances you no longer inhabit continue to make decisions in a life that those circumstances can no longer justify. Now is the window. The period between 18 and 25 is the most structurally significant time for identity formation in a human life, and using it to consciously choose who you become rather than passively inheriting who your environment made you is the single highest return investment available to a young person.
I want to take you back to a specific feeling, not a specific event, a feeling, because I think you will recognize it, and I think recognizing it is the beginning of everything. It is the feeling of being in a room, could be a classroom, could be a family gathering, could be a group of friends, could be anywhere, and knowing that the version of yourself you are presenting in that room is not the full version, that there is something underneath what everyone is seeing that does not match the surface, that you are performing something, and the performance is convincing, and everyone believes it, and you are the only one who knows it is a performance. I lived with that feeling for years, from the time I was a teenager right through my early 20s, and I had lived with it so long that I had almost stopped noticing it. It had just become the background noise of my existence, the permanent gap between the me that people saw and the me that was actually there underneath. I thought this was just what being a person felt like. I thought everyone had this gap. I thought it was normal. It is not normal. It is common. There is a significant difference. The version of myself I was performing had been built over years, and it had been built carefully, and it had been built in response to very specific pressures. I grew up in an environment where certain qualities were valued and others were not, where showing too much emotion was weakness, where having unconventional opinions was asking for trouble, where the safest version of yourself was the most agreeable one. The one that did not challenge, did not question too loudly, did not want things that were too far outside what was expected.
I was good at reading environments. I understood early what was expected of me, and I delivered it. Not cynically, just the way any young person responds to their environment, by adapting, by becoming whatever version of themselves generates the most safety and the least friction. The problem is that adaptation that begins as survival can solidify into identity if you are not paying attention. The smallness that kept you safe becomes the smallness you call your personality. The silence that protected you becomes the silence you call being an introvert. The agreeableness that kept the peace becomes the agreeableness you call being a good person. And then, one day, you are 20 years old, reaching inside for answers about who you are, and what you find is not you. What you find is a very convincing collection of adaptations that have been there so long they feel like original furniture. That was my moment. Not dramatic, just a quiet, unsettling realization that I did not actually know who I was underneath the performance. And the old version of me was terrified of that question, because if I found out who I actually was, and I already knew they were different from the performance, I would have to make a choice. Keep performing for everyone's comfort, or start becoming real at the cost of disrupting everything I had carefully built. The old me wanted to stay small, stay safe, stay manageable. And that desire, that fearful desire to stay manageable, is exactly what I mean when I say kill the old you, because it will quietly run your entire life if you let it. These are not personalities, these are protections. And you are not obligated to keep wearing protection in environments that are no longer dangerous. You have access right now to a version of yourself that is still malleable, still forming, still capable of being shaped by conscious choice. That is not a burden. That is the most extraordinary opportunity you will ever have. Look at everything you have become and ask honestly, which of this is actually mine? And which of this did I inherit because I did not know I had a choice? Then choose, deliberately, consciously, even knowing some people will not like the new version. Choose anyway. Because the alternative is spending the rest of your life as someone else's comfortable version of you.